That's really why we did it, just to improve the conditions of the back. They wanted a nice garden. They do want some fruit production, something for their kids to eat. Maybe they'll try to grow some veggies someday, but really they just wanted a nice place to be. And using, the native plants mixed in with pioneer species, mixed in with, some of our productive species, you can create a really lovely place. And
Ladies and gentlemen, grab your gloves and get your compost ready. Stepping into the ring is the perennial powerhouse, the sultan of soil, the beast of the beds, where permaculture reigns, food grows wild, community roots run deep, and yes, the garden punts hit hard. Freedom starts in the soil. This is the Guerrilla Gardening Show.
Welcome back to the Guerrilla Gardening Show. My name's Mike. I'm Mike with Mike's in the Garden. And that's Sam from Central Florida Abundance. What's going on, Sam?
what's going on, Mike and Ike? How you doing? You got any garden projects going on this week?
Oh, I've always got stuff going on. We finally got, it's like torrential rain here for the last few hours. So rain barrels are full. Seedlings are watered and the garden is watered. And I know we're looking at a house today that you had a project on that I think is going to be really interesting to share.
Yeah, I do want to show off this property, and it's funny that you mentioned the rain because I'm also getting a downpour, but I was just out at this property yesterday and heard that they had not had a drop of water since everything was planted out here a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Luckily, it was a full installation that was done, and so they did get an irrigation system and everything, so everything's still looking really good. Um, but I'll just take us right in. Let me pull it up here. So this is a Central Florida backyard. This is in a planned subdivision community. Um, all of these houses are probably, I think the development here happened about 15 or 20 or 10 or 15 years ago.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, that's relatively recently when we're, really thinking about it. So the soil, all the backfill that was put here is still very fresh. It's never had complex root systems growing through it. It's not like they came in here and cut down a bunch of trees. I mean, they probably did, but then they piled, 30 feet of sand on top of it.
Mhm.
Um, this is also a very interesting site. We can see this fence back here. I'll have some pictures later that'll show that this is actually about at least a 15-foot retaining wall, and then it drops down, and you can see the slope back here.
Yeah.
Um, and this level, I mean, is probably 30 feet below that where the yard is. And so there's no water down here. It's bone dry,
Yeah.
30 feet down. And so we know that the water table here is very far down. Um, and it does fill up with water sometimes. This area, traditionally, naturally, is kind of a wetland swamp area. Uh, and so to build the homes here, it had to be, built up pretty high. Um, which left these people with some really dry yards and some very weird soil. I could say that for certain. Um, but this is a pretty typical project that I do, and I will say that this one was done with the Grow Food Company, and that's Cameron and the guys. I've been working with them, getting some awesome installations done for people. Uh, they're great at running or food forests, regenerative ag, uh, regenerative landscaping, whatever you want to call it. You know, they're making that business model happen. Um, and this is, I'd say, about I don't know, it might be like 75% native. And
Okay.
it is kind of sparse at the moment. This was a first phase, but let's back it up.
Is this
So
a grow food company design as well?
it is, yes.
Okay.
This was I actually went and did the survey for this, took the measurements, and then um, they ran with it, working with a client, full service. This was really tailored to the client. Uh, it's a young couple with young children. They wanted a garden that they could go out in and will provide, and then also, provide a nice place to be. So real quick, I'm gonna swap. Thought I could do this more fluidly. And this is what we started with. So
Hmm.
at, you can see these two oak trees in the backyard here, and one of them stayed, but you could tell from the other image that it did not. The other one did not. This one right here was removed. And you may think, why remove this oak if you're trying to get, a shadier backyard? Wouldn't that give you tons of shade? Well,
Sam, why would you
in
remove an oak tree like that?
exactly, you know, we wanted shade fast. And in the long term, we definitely, will get shade from one of these oaks, but really one live oak is enough for a backyard that's about, 80 feet by 80 feet. That one tree is going to take up that whole space, but it's probably going to take, I mean, 50 or 60 years before it's that size. Not to mention these were planted, I believe, when this home was built. And they hadn't really grown much. They've probably grown about 2 feet, from their 15-gallon size, maybe a little bit more. But I can say when we took the one out of the ground, it really did not have the root system of a 10-year-old. And I mean, it's much older than that, but 10 years in the ground tree. Um, so you can see that we went ahead, and I mean, these initial pictures are part of the survey process. This really shows that retaining wall here.
Yeah, wow. That's probably a 6 foot fence or a
The
4 foot
fence, no,
fence.
the fence was like 4 foot, but then the
Okay.
retaining wall,
Yeah.
maybe 12, 15 feet.
Yeah.
Um, and south is over on the right side of this picture here.
Okay.
And so uh, the sun rises in the front of this house, which isn't so bad. Uh, is that what it was? Yeah. And then sets back here in the backyard. And so at sunset, it's just this giant, open crater. They get tons of wind. It's very hot there in the evenings. Um, so we really wanted to do something about that. We wanted to get, you know, some plant diversity into their soil. The grass is barely hanging on. You can see right outside their yard where people are taking less care of it. It just
Yeah.
can't survive. And even the yard here, it's green, but it's less than 50% like grass species, and it's mostly green from just other, poor soil pioneers that can hang on in there. Um, so we wanted to get some diversity in. We did have to, we can see we removed one of the oaks here. It is down here now. It was no small feat, but it we did leave a lot of the root system in the soil to decompose, add carbon back in. But we really didn't find any roots down in the soil as we were digging down. Um, this was about the end of day one. We have some plants staged out here, but you can see this is usually the first step when we do have a lot of greenery is we'll sod cut. Um, if you've never seen one, sod cutter is a little machine like a till, and you can just run it over, chops up all the grass roots, and then usually you can just rake it out. It sounds easier than it feels when you're out there and it's 100 degrees and you're
Sure.
like raking every little root out, but I assure y'all it's easier than trying to dig it all out. Um, and we did have the design from the Grow Food Company, and all these bed shapes were part of the design. And the intention here, these two beds are not connected. This is an irrigation line. And so it looks like that, but the intention is that eventually these beds right here are going to connect and then incorporate this as well. It's
Okay.
all about minimizing edges, which permaculture people may not agree with, but you want to edges are very productive, but edges also require the most maintenance. And so, we want as few edges as possible in the end. But you still utilize your edge zones. So right now it's a little disconnected, but a mulberry tree went into this little pocket, and we really wanted to get that mulberry tree in early. We're like, even if, we fill in the rest of the bed for it later, let's get this mulberry tree in the ground and get it growing. Because as we learned last week, hopefully this is going to air canonically, uh, mulberry trees are very fast growing. They can get just as large as a live oak, but they can do it in a quarter of the time. And so, this being over on the west side of their yard, um, it's going to block a lot of the evening sun that goes into their little shade room here. And also, they have young kids, so mulberry trees are just great to have around.
Sure.
The birds will love it.
Yeah, I was gonna
Actually ended
say,
up with,
yeah, they need
yeah,
something to bring in some wildlife too.
and that's why we actually gave them two mulberries.
Okay.
So they ended up with the one in that circle. That's us hanging out, not doing anything, whatever. Uh, the one in that circle is a Tice, I believe, large mulberry, large tree, large leaf. But then we also planted an everbearing, and then the everbearing is what I like to use to feed the birds. Uh, but you see here, this is probably around the end of the second day, and it looks a lot different.
Hmm.
Um, we brought in about 5 yards of compost, really nice compost. Um, it was made from manures and forest material. So, it was really well broken down, real rich, and did not smell like methane, which is a good sign. I don't know if you've ever gotten one of those like bulk compost deliveries and it's got big old chunks of stuff in it and it just kind of s-
Yeah.
smells interesting. You're like, I don't want to
Hmm.
dive into that really. Uh, no, but this was really good. And so we took those areas that we'd cut all the grass off of. We spread the compost over evenly on everything. And then, fortunately enough, we have an auger. Um, you familiar?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, big old drill for the ground. This is not one of the drill augers that you just hold. This is a big old gas powered, you
Yeah.
know, it'll go about 3 or 4 feet
Up
down.
up north, we use them for ice fishing. That's how you get your holes in the ground. Yeah.
Oh, oh my God. I can't imagine using one of those on a frozen lake.
When I saw
Oh,
people using them in the dirt, I'm like, don't they know that's for the ice?
oh, that'd be
Much,
terrifying.
much easier in the dirt.
It would. I mean, I can't imagine because it's not necessarily easy in the dirt. I've
Yeah, it's
caught
probably
little
a
roots
special
and
blade or
stuff, and
something, but yeah,
maybe. But for these large trees like we were planting out here, these are 10 and 15 gallon
yeah,
fruit trees. Um, the thing we ran into because of this is all builders sand and clay is that weird soil. So this is one bed we did. I probably have
okay.
another picture of it
light
Uh,
brown and then like a tan brown.
yeah. And so these little faces you see are from the auger. I go in 3 times and then we just chop up all the dirt in between. So these holes are probably 10 feet away from each other, if that. And this one is very heavy in clay.
Hmm.
And when we tried digging into the hole, it was very compacted. I mean, it was very difficult to dig through. It felt like, dried clay. And then right over here, it felt like we were at the beach. I mean, loose, powdery. You couldn't even get it out of the hole because it was just so, flowy. Um, and I mean, that was the most dramatic, but you can see back here, we kind of had the same thing. Um, this one was more clayey. And that was really all we put in. You can see our mulberry's small right now, but it's gonna be real
Yeah.
big.
Hmm.
This was our other mulberry tucked in here. Um, but then in the understory, I think we did firebush, beautyberry, and then the native Darrow's blueberry. And the Darrow's blueberry is really good with dry soils, which they're gonna have up here. But really, the beautyberry and the firebush we could do because it's on irrigation. Normally, this dry, this sunny, you couldn't get those species to go. Um, but then for like our overstory, because we were talking about how we want shade really quickly. This tree right here is a jacaranda, or as I was corrected at least a dozen times while I was trying to buy this tree, jacaranda, which does not sound like it can be right. I f- I feel like the correct pronunciation involves some rolling of R's
Sure.
somewhere in there, but I can't do that. So just bear with me. But the jacaranda, uh, it's a flowering tree in the pea family. And so it's a pioneer species. It likes poor soils. It grows really rapidly. And it's pretty. And then it drops its leaves throughout the year, which adds a lot of organic matter and nitrogen to the top layer of the soil. Um, and so that is really what replaced this oak that had been in this location. And so it's not going to get, live oak size ever, hopefully. Um, but I mean, it can be 20, 30 feet tall in less than 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's going to provide a lot of shade. And it's not a fruit tree. It can, be used as chop and drop. That's probably what's going to happen with it here is we'll let it get big, but then in the wintertime we'll cut it back and then use it to feed the system. Um, and then right next to it, though, is one of your favorite trees to grow fast and make lots of shade is the Jamaican cherry or the
Hmm.
strawberry tree. Um, I know yours didn't do so well. These people actually aren't too far from you. Maybe you just slide on over and borrow some of their cherries. Steal cherries from their children.
Yeah.
Uh, but this is another one that grows really rapidly and makes a beautiful canopy. And so they do hang out in this area up here. This is like their little potting bench gardening area. Um, yeah, they don't have plants, but they, just keep their things. So we're going to use the strawberry tree to cast some shade in here because again, south is on this side. And so, obviously in the morning, their house shades from the sun. This tree with its big canopy is going to shade it midday to late afternoon. And then when we get into the afternoon, we've got this last bed over on the end. And I kind of just want to jump into, oh, we got a little video.
Ooh.
I didn't know I took any videos of this one. It's not the final day. but you can kind of get an idea of how how high up this property is.
Yeah. Yeah, they must have
And it's
brought in a
windy.
ton of fill.
You can see the wind out there too.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. The oak tree we cut down had was blown sideways. Like it was still f fine, but it was it was off to a rough start. And then we can see, the gross cookie cutter straight lawn landscape. Everybody's got a live oak in their backyard. In 150 years, if all those trees make it, there will be some canopy in this neighborhood. But these people, especially from this shot, they need canopy now. Like
Yeah.
these soils need canopy now.
Yeah.
You can see the mulch that we brought in. Everyone was looking at us like we were crazy. And there we go. So
Mm.
now it's mulched. And now we can take a look at this bed back here. This is kind of our late evening block as well as the mulberry. This area
Hmm.
was intentionally left open because they enjoy the view. And look at this view. This view of where water comes out of a location and the end is full of rocks.
Yeah. As
That's
previously
interesting.
discussed
Somebody
in an
somebody should
episode.
do a video about that.
And it looks like it's
Uh,
done right.
it does, yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently this area fills up like the retaining wall gets water touching it sometimes. And so
Wow.
it's a flood path. But anyways, this bed back here is I mean the thought was that it's on this slope, but I mean realistically in this yard, this slope is not going to be much different from the top of this hill when, the bottom of the hill is 30 feet down. But at the end of or the top of this slope, we've got an olive tree, and then we've got an avocado, which are gonna fill in, be kept bushy, not too tall, and then just left to, be productive, but then also block a lot of the view from over here. Um, and there's also a fig in the middle, which I don't know if it'll ever block any view. I mean, you have some beautiful figs,
Yeah.
but figs are pretty hit or miss here. They can grow, but they're not always the prettiest thing. So what we did to kind of break up the wind, because I'm worried that this avocado and this olive are just going to get blasted by the wind when they get big. You can see all the stakes we put on them actually.
Hmm.
All these posts with the white tops. The avocado actually has three. Um, but in between them, I threw in Simpson stoppers, which is a semi-fast growing native shrub, and it gets super dense. Like it's a bush. It's like the hedge bush you wish you had.
Okay.
Uh, and so, I mean, they can be about as big as you'll let them, and they could get 20 feet tall. So, you could easily keep them 10, 15 feet, and then just fill in this spot, enough room for some airflow. But I mean, I'd say I want to see barely enough room to walk through this row once these Simpson stoppers fill in, just to break the wind because it is brutal out here.
Now, are they
Um,
gonna smother that fig and or kind of uh grow faster and taller than the olive and avocado?
they definitely won't get taller. And so, really, my thoughts with this is plants are going to grow into the space they have available. The avocado's fine. It's already much taller than anything else out here, so it's going to have that sunlight.
Okay.
The olive, it's got the whole evening sun, full sun over here. And then the fig is probably going to have the least amount of room, but it's got plenty of room to, fill out this way. And then the key is really just, keeping up with the Simpson stoppers and pruning them, off of it they're not like a like the jacaranda, that they're fast growing for a shrub, for a long-lived shrub, but it's not going to be, 10 feet of growth in a year or anything. It's pretty easy to stay on top of. Plus, with the wind, their young branches are usually pretty fragile. And so in high wind areas, I see lots of, damage to them, which is totally fine for the Simpson stopper. They don't, it's not a species that we're focused on production. And it's a more wild species, so it's tougher. And so, them taking that wind damage is good. It helps keep them smaller, and then keeps the wind off of things like the fig or the olive. Um, Really, I'm not worried about the avocado too much. Pretty tropical tree, used to high windy areas, and once everything fills in, I think it'll be good. Also, I should point out this fence here is completely down to the end now. The day
Hmm.
after we finished this project, they ran this fence down to this back fence. So there's like another layer of windbreak right
Was
behind
that
that
your
avocado.
access point going around that fence? Okay.
It really was, because we were going both ways, but with that mulch pile we had in the front,
Yeah, yeah.
we were like, let's just take it around here. You can see we may have spilled some mulch right there.
Yeah.
This whole thing needs some mulch. My God, it was rough.
Yeah.
I'll be happier to go back here and do maintenance in, 2 or 3 years when there's actually some shade.
Sure.
But it is brutal out there, and you know that's really why we did it, just to improve the conditions of the back. They wanted a nice garden. They do want some fruit production, something for their kids to eat. Maybe they'll try to grow some veggies someday, but really they just wanted a nice place to be. Um, and using, the native plants mixed in with pioneer species, mixed in with, some of our productive species, you can create a really lovely place. And I mean, we knocked this all out in a week. It was me and one other guy on the field.
Nice.
And we do have, a lot of backup uh, from Cam and the team, as far as like, sourcing vendors. That's the thing people don't think about this. They're like, oh, well, you just get a plan and then you just go do it. But then you look at the plants that you want and that are good, and then you go to buy them, and it's, oh, none of these are available. Or,
Hmm.
you go buy mulch, and then the mulch shows up, and it has happened before, the wrong mulch, and you're like, oh, what do I do with this? And so,
Great.
I mean, that's the benefit of, hiring somebody to do it is you don't have to worry about all that. There's going to be enough to do. These people, when I left this with them, I left them with homework because, there's things that they needed to do and learn to do. Luckily, we do offer maintenance. And so, and I've already done a follow-up visit for them, but in a couple months, we'll be sending somebody else out there, either myself or someone else, to go do their first maintenance, teach them some chop and drop, take a look at the weeds, and then just monitor the performance of everything.
Were they satisfied?
Oh yeah, they were
Nice.
really happy. The kids were out there catching bugs.
Nice.
Uh, you know, uh, they were learning. I mean, they were just learning about plants in general. Everything that was out there was pretty much new to them. They had a peach and a plum, and then they were familiar with like the olive tree because they had one in their front yard from a previous homeowner.
Hmm.
Uh, and just everything was like a whole new world. And it is interesting as soon as you start putting especially native plants into a place, you could just put the pots out. Butterflies and insects, they just come like, within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
uh and that always blows people's minds. It still blows my mind, really.
Cool. We got a minute left, Sam. Um, Yeah, I always like the aerial shots and the progression. So that was a good one. Maybe like you said, in a year or so we can follow up and get an update. We'll have to do an update video soon because it's been almost a year we've been doing this. So uh Sam, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and hire your services? You can make their yard look like this one.
Absolutely. Specifically this, we're going to talk about the Grow Food Company. You can go to thegrowfoodcompany.com. You can also check us out on Instagram and Facebook, I believe. You can schedule consultation or a phone call to get your design started. Or if you already have an existing system, we also offer maintenance, and you'll be getting to meet Cameron, who's a great individual, and he'll be your main contact and get you set up in the system.